Just testing my mic. Can you hear me okay? Great.
You look very nice. I'm gonna have to turn my camera off because I look like I've been laying down in my daughter's bed trying to get her to sleep. So
Good evening.
I said good evening with my mic off.
Denise, could we test that I have screen that I can share my screen?
Go ahead. I see it. So nice to see everyone here. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. Looks like we have about 1 more minute from my clock. Okay, I have 7 o'clock by my clock, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. So good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Denise Sheriff, and I'm the LIS Program Director here at the USF School of Information. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the 35th Annual Alice G. Smith Lecture. Hope everyone can hear me okay and that my slides are following. Let me know if they aren't. The Alice G. Smith Lecture Series was established in 1989 as an annual recognition of a scholar or author whose achievements have been instrumental in the development of librarianship or information studies. It's the longest continuously running lectureship in library and information science. This lecture series honors the memory of the school's first director, Alice Gullum Smith, who was central to the school's first accreditation by the American Library Association in 1975. We have an event-filled program for you this evening where we'll be honoring individuals' achievements and contributions to the LIS program and to the greater profession. First, we'll present the Outstanding Student Award. This will be followed by the presentation of the Gene Key Gates Distinguished Alumni Award, and then followed by our keynote presentation, the Alice G. Smith Lecture. First, we would like to recognize the Outstanding Student Award. This year, Robin Amstutz was selected to receive the award, which commemorates students whose exceptional work, community involvement, and contributions to the field stand out among their peers. Robin has impressed both her professors and the awards committee with her insightful observations on the importance of archival preservation. In addition to excelling academically, she has also demonstrated exceptional dedication through her volunteer work, honoring the memory of our service members. As a military spouse of nearly 20 years and a mother to a teenage daughter, she's volunteered with various organizations across the United States. Currently, she volunteers at the Lewis Army Museum Archive on Joint Base Lewis McChord, JBLM, in Washington State. Over the past year and a half, she's been contributing to the Vietnam-era Soldier Portrait Project, where she has been rehousing and digitizing photographs to create an accessible digital archive, preserving the memories of these service members for future generations. She will receive an inscribed plaque in recognition of this award. Please join me in congratulating Robin Amstutz as Outstanding Student of the Year. Congratulations, Robin. It's my honor now to introduce the recipient of the Gene Key Gates Distinguished Alumni Award. This award is named in honor of Professor Emerita Gene Key Gates and recognizes alumni whose outstanding professional achievements serve as a role model for all information science graduates. Mr. Ray Baker is the recipient of this year's award. Ray is a 2016 graduate from the School of Information and is a current member of our adjunct faculty. He's been director of the Miami-Dade Public Library System since 2017, leading one of the largest public library systems in the United States with 50 library locations and 800 dedicated library employees serving 2.7 million residents. This year alone, the Miami-Dade Public Library System was named the Florida Library Association Library of the Year, received a 2024 Innovation Award from the Urban Libraries Council, and received 77 National Association of Counties Achievement or NACO awards, including one Best in Category for Achievement in Libraries and Government Services. Ray teaches LIS 5020, Foundations of Library and Information Science, and LIS 6445, Seminar in Public Libraries. We are so proud of Ray's achievements. He will receive an engraved plaque in recognition of this award. Please join me in congratulating Ray Baker as the 2024 Gene Key Gates Distinguished Alum. And now it's my honor and privilege to introduce the 35th Alice G. Smith Lecturer, Kimberly DeFusco. Kim is the Supervisor of Library Media Services for middle and secondary schools for Hillsborough County's Public Schools, the 7th largest school district in the nation. Kim is a 2006 graduate of the University of South Florida School of Information and is currently pursuing a Ph.D. in Instructional Technology. She was the 2019 recipient of the Florida Association for Media and Education, or FAME, Administrators Advocacy Award, and currently serves on the USF SI MLIS Advisory Council. Student access to certified school librarians, robust library collections of print and digital resources, and welcoming library spaces to foster exploration and understanding have been the cornerstones of her 24-year career in K-12 education and school librarianship. In her leisure, she enjoys exploring the world through travel or story and relaxing at home with family, friends, and 3 cats, Luna Lovegood, Tally Youngblood, and May Bird. I will now hand over the microphone to Kimberly DeFusco, our esteemed speaker. Thank you so much, Kimberly.
Thank you. And as we do the juggling of the changing of the slides, I just have to share that I included the full names of my cats because for young adult readers out there, I'm certain you recognize them. All my cats are named after young adult or middle grade book characters. So thank you so much. It is an honor to be here tonight as the 35th Alice G. Smith Lecturer. I began my career in education as a foreign language teacher. So I was in the classroom, and then I was the school library media specialist at Young Middle School in Tampa, Florida. And now I have the great privilege, as you heard, to be the supervisor of library media services for middle and secondary schools in Hillsborough County Public Schools. And you'll hear this again because it's something we are very proud of, the 7th largest school district in the nation. When I began putting together my thoughts for this lecture, I thought about the last few years, navigating confusing and sometimes conflicting legislation, pushing back on inaccurate and harmful narratives about school libraries, the skills and strategies we used, and the lessons we've been learning along the way. And honestly, I've talked about these topics so many times over recent years. In fact, in my PhD studies, these are what I'm investigating. I thought the words would come easy, but they didn't. Leading School Libraries, centered on students, grounded in ethics. These themes will be woven through this lecture, but this is not what was on my heart. As I sat recently at Silent Book Club, and if you don't know Silent Book Club, look it up. It's fantastic. People get together in public locations and just read whatever book you're enjoying reading. So it's reading alone together. It's beautiful. But I was sitting at Silent Book Club with a couple of friends who are school librarians. And we were all sharing just as we usually do. And I got to enjoy hearing about a Taylor Swift birthday event that was coming up the next day in the library. One librarian, having just recovered from a cold, was absolutely exhausted, but was excitedly telling us about an event, a student event that was taking place in the library the next day. I love listening to school librarians. The passion for school librarian work is palpable. School librarians work with everyone in the school, but are the only school librarian on the site. And their work is mostly visible to the students they serve and often invisible to those outside of a school. So I wish to take this time tonight to share the beautiful, important work of school librarians and express my deepest gratitude to this field. To school librarians, a love letter. My first love was learning. My family identity was the smart one. I found comfort in information. It was like solving puzzles and knowing the answer or knowing how to find the answer. I continue to have that as a cornerstone of my personal identity. My family fostered this love by putting no boundaries on my intellectual pursuits, even and maybe especially when it conflicted with their own ideals. They let me love learning with no limits. For me, the connection between loving learning and loving reading was not an obvious one. As someone with attention deficit disorder, I struggled to keep focus and read books, but I tore through magazines. I learned in my regular classroom and out in the world. My school libraries, unfortunately, were an afterthought. In my elementary, it was shelving installed on a wall inside the cafeteria. My junior high was not built as a school. It had lives as a government building and as a museum, and then as a junior high. The library was located in the basement and contained only very old nonfiction books. I went there as part of the Mimeo Club, dating myself here, where teachers would send me to make copies for them. And I'd go down to the library basement and chat with the librarian and play Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego on the old big Apple II with the huge floppy disks. I lived way out in the woods of rural Connecticut, and my only real connection to the public library was the bookmobile they sent out to us during the summer. I couldn't tell you a single book I borrowed from it, but I remember clearly hearing the engine of the diesel bus as it strained to come up the hill, and my sister and I running up our long driveway, getting excited to get a look inside. It took many years to understand how learning itself could be a profession. And my first door was teaching. Though teaching was originally just an excuse to stay in school. The accidental discovery of the library as a profession came when finding a reason to teach in the air-conditioned library during the very hot summers when I taught high school in Japan. You see, you could only teach in the library's air conditioning if you had a reason to. And so I developed cultural research lessons with my 10th grade students. It was there that I began to understand that it was the library that called me. I applied to the USF for the MLIS program even before I'd moved back to the US. I'd planned to be an academic librarian, but then I subbed. I subbed for various subjects and various levels. until I was asked to sub for the librarian in a small Rhode Island middle school. The lesson plan she left me said that 7th grade English language arts classes were going to be in all day, and that I was to continue along with the read alouds by reading aloud chapter 4 of Joey Pigza Swallowed the Key by Jack Gantos. The students were so excited for the next chapter. So I asked them, fill me in on chapters 1, 2, and 3 so I could be as excited for chapter 4 as they were. And they excitedly talked and spoke over each other, expanding on the plot and talking about Joey's hijinks and editorializing on their opinions of Joey and what they thought would happen next. And the energy was electric. I wanted more. In every school I subbed in after that, I always visited the library. I didn't get to sub in a library again, but I always visited. I observed and I asked questions, and the school librarians were excited to welcome me into their ranks. They knew before I did. They claimed me. My path was school librarian. Much love to the school librarians who put students at the center of their work. So picture a middle school library. It's lunch. And students begin shuffling in, a pass in one hand, a lunch in the other hand. Yesterday, the district held a virtual author visit, but this librarian knew that 1 p.m. was just not a time of day that many teachers would release students for an event. So a great idea was born. Use the recording the next day during lunch. Promotions went out, students signed up, and lunch passes were distributed. And now dozens of students are coming to spend the one short free time they have each day to socialize, to be in the media center and hear an author. Now these are middle schoolers, ages 11 to 14. Narratives will tell us they don't read. They spend all of their time with their noses in their devices. But here they are in the library, listening to author Tony Weaver Jr. And Tony Weaver Jr. talks about his love for anime and manga and how it started in middle school. He says he never realized that wasn't cool. And the students gasp, not cool. That's news to them. In their circles, that's plenty cool. And Tony shares about finding a welcomeness in words and stories. They actively listen, sometimes a little too obsessed in the way middle schoolers get obsessed with things, with whether this presentation is live or recorded, because it seems like it's live, but they know the librarian said it was recorded. There's one young man, the body language and the look in his eyes, it is so clear that he is dialed in. He feels seen by this author on the screen. He relates. And while this program is for dozens of students in this library and thousands of students across the district, the school librarian knows this moment was for him. Much love to the school librarians who build cultures of reading, who know their students, who know exactly which books students want and need, who creatively prioritize their very limited budgets to meet the needs of students, who advocate on behalf of students to ensure that there are books to learn, to laugh, to cry, to rage, books to see themselves reflected back, and to see all the worlds, real and imaginary, well beyond what they know, who find ways to reach out and connect their students to authors, and encourage the writers and storytellers who walk within their libraries to see their creative skills, who build bridges for literacy with families and communities, and who play matchmaker with books, finding opportunities for students to realize themselves as readers, who welcome all readers within their school library. Much love to the school librarians who put students at the center of their work. It's Maker Monday. You see, each Monday or each school library has just one staff member. Yes, you heard me right. Each school library has just one staff member, the certified school library media specialist. So this means that not every resource or learning experience can be available at every moment in time. And on Maker Monday is when all the hands-on tools come out. There are crafts, circuitry, robots whizzing around the floor. The librarian circulates to give supports here and there, but the proof of instruction goes well beyond what you see them teaching and coaching in the moment. The learning evidence is everywhere. There are students who take the lead on organizing and pulling out and setting up materials. There are student experts with all the different resources who coach each other, welcome in newbies to learn something new. Over in the corner, separate from the maker area, 3 students huddle around a laptop, practicing the PowerPoint presentation they'll give tomorrow on their history fair research. On the sofas, a handful of students read, completely unfazed by the previously mentioned robots whizzing around the floor. Learning is kind of noisy. It is a controlled chaos. And just as quickly as it started, it ends. A cell phone alarm goes off and students begin putting away their projects, tucked onto shelves where they'll stay until next Monday. The bell rings and there are a couple minutes of quiet before the next period arrives. Much love to the school librarians who engage learners, who are teachers and librarians, not 50-50, but 100-100, using the tenets of both education and librarianship to inform their practice, who lesson plan and co-teach with classroom teachers for science, language arts, social studies, the arts, and yes, even math and VOAG, who guide research, citation, data evaluation, and the exploration of personal passions, who reinforce ethical use and synthesis of information, who build hands-on learning experiences, even when it is messy, who find the yes to student learning. Paint, yes. Circuits, yes. Sewing, yes. Soldering, yes. Glitter, oof. Much love to the school librarians who put students at the center of their work. We're in a high school. 70 students have signed up for Poetry Jam. 70. A large event like this is treated like a field trip. So in addition to signing up, students had to come pick up a field trip form, take their permission slip home, have it signed by their families, brought it back to school, and gone teacher to teacher to get signatures in order to approve their missing class. They collected their missing assignments and agreed to complete it, some teachers expecting them to complete it even before the day it's due. And they did all this before arriving to Poetry Jam, 70 of them. And so they arrive at the library. Some are poets already. They've come to compete. Some don't consider themselves poets yet, but they want to hone their craft. Some came because there is pizza for lunch. Valid. Some of those pizza lovers will soon find out that they are poets. 70 students, many who do not know each other. They pass by each other in hallways filled with 2,000 or 3,000 other faces each day. They share space in the library. They share a little bit of their humanity, and they trust each other with their stories. 3 hours later, they leave changed people. Changed for having truly seen and heard their classmates. Changed for having been seen and heard. Much love to the school librarians who amplify student voices, who host poetry jams, songwriting workshops, who display student art and learning throughout the library, who provide opportunities for students to share their expertise, their hobbies, and their passions with each other through teaching in the library, who empower students to make decisions for the library program, decisions that impact library policy and procedures, who allow students to create and curate their own book displays, who deal with the discomfort of handing over power and control, and allow students the opportunity to raise up their voice through choice. These last few years have been challenging. Narratives and conversations about school libraries and school librarians have been debated on legislative floors, discussed at school board meetings, and shared on online forums, with some painting pictures of the work so very different than the work that we know. Some narratives omit or ignore the respect for the deeply rich, diverse communities school librarians serve. Some champion the right to access information and intellectual freedom. Some such narratives paint heroes or villains. In some places, school librarians were invited to the table to defend or explain their practice. In others, school librarians were not included in the conversations about library practice at all. In support of the school librarians we love, wherever you are, please advocate. Attend school board meetings, speak during public comment periods to emphasize the importance of school libraries and librarians, write letters and emails, contact school board members, superintendents, and local government officials to advocate for adequate library fundings and supports. Engage with your legislators and community. Stay informed. Learn about the policies and legislation impacting school libraries. Work against state or local policies that limit access to diverse materials or reduce library staffing. And promote awareness. Share articles, data, and information with your network about the importance of school libraries and certified librarians. Advocacy doesn't have to look big. It can be the small conversations we have at the barbershop and the hair salon and over dinner. Amplify. Support student voices. Help find ways to lift student voices in support of their library. Highlight success stories, share examples of how school librarians positively impact students to media outlets, social media, and community forums, and celebrate their work. Nominate school librarians for awards or public recognition. Who knew school librarians would become so close with their school district's lawyers? Spending evenings and weekends poring over legislation, all the different ways a sentence, a paragraph can be interpreted, depending on where the comma and where the bullet points are. Supporting each other, navigating book challenges, taking deep breaths to remember their why. Advocating by sharing the stories of their libraries with families, communities, board members, legislators, and sometimes even law enforcement. And through this all, the most powerful demonstration of ethics and professionalism has been how they continued to do the skilled, beautiful, important work of a school librarian each and every day. Forever yours, much love to school librarians. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that inspirational presentation, Kim. I think we have time for questions. So if you have a question for Kim, just please raise your hand. Alicia, I think you were first.
Hello, I'm sorry. I was having trouble with the technology, but I just wanted to say thank you so much to Kimberly. This was inspirational, and it helps remind all of us of the work that all of you do in the schools, especially in Florida and in these recent years where you face so much challenge and lack of trust from authorities, from neighbors, from parents, from all kinds of people. But I wanted also to tell you that there are a lot of people who support you, and thank you for reminding us to keep advocating. And I sign my name with the love letter.
Thank you, Alicia.
Heidi, I think you are next. Heidi, did you want to unmute your mic so you could ask your question? Oh, okay. We'll watch the chat for yours. I'm sorry, I missed that earlier. But if you have a question, go ahead and pop it into the chat. So Heidi's question is, what do you think is the largest difference between working as a school media specialist versus a public librarian working with youth?
So that's a great question. And so my answer will come and may not be fully informed because I have never worked in a public librarian as a public librarian. And just as in anything, when we move in someone else's space, we think we know what the job is until we actually do it, right? But in talking with public librarians and in being a user of the public library, and we've had some public librarians move from the public library over to the school library. And so we get to be a part of that learning curve as they become school library media specialists. I think the one biggest difference is that a school librarian is every type of librarian in one. So in my experience with the public library, they're more specialized, like someone's a collections librarian, someone's working on collection development, and someone else is working on policy and administration, and then there's children's programming librarians and teen programming librarians. And in the school library, the school librarian is every one of those librarians. They catalog, they teach, they do programming, they do the collection development. If a sign is going up in the library or furniture is getting moved around in the library, that school librarian is making all of those decisions and has the empowerment to do that in the library. It also means that they are spread very thin, as all of us in public service are. But I think that the most significant difference is that there is not a specialization in school library. The school librarian is doing every element from administration to event design to rearranging the facility. All of that is within the realm of the school librarian.
Thank you for that. Karen, it looks like you had a comment. Did you want to unmute yourself for a minute and ask?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. So just wondering, this idea of different ways to encapsulate or the different lenses of this idea that you've presented, which I think is so valuable, but from different perspectives, like globally, internationally. I know most likely we're looking at the US, but maybe, there are other ways we could learn from each other in the global scope. So that was just sort of my thought.
And Karen's spot on, absolutely. One, as I mentioned earlier, librarians are the only at their school. It's very rare very rare in Florida to have more than one school librarian working at a school nowadays. It wasn't, 30 years ago, but now it's in fact, many school libraries in Florida do not have a certified school librarian. But so most school libraries in the state of Florida have one certified school librarian that works there. Hillsborough County, we're so fortunate that we're a very large district that librarians have a way to network and connect and learn from each other. But there are other counties that are smaller and other places in other states that may not have those networks. And what we've seen happen over the last 10, 15 years are online networks, social media networks. So on Facebook, there's Future Ready Librarians is one of the largest school librarian networks on Facebook. And that has primarily school librarians from the US, but also school librarians from other countries. I have a friend who was a school librarian for many years in Berlin, and she was a member of Future Ready Librarians in order to connect with other librarians and hear stories and grow and learn from each other. Because as a only, we work and learn with our teachers, but having the opportunity to professionally learn and grow from other librarians becomes more limited in that day-to-day experience. So finding online networks of other librarians, not just in the US and beyond, absolutely contribute to the growth. Thank you for that.
We have two more questions coming into the chat. The first one is from Lauren, who asks, how do you handle negativity from your community when you're discussing the importance of librarianship?
So first, I take a deep breath because if someone is approaching a school library with a negative lens, what that tells me is that there's a great opportunity for education there, because no one who has stepped into the libraries in our schools and seen this beautiful work that gets done there walks away thinking negative things about these amazing programs and the amazing work of school librarians. So the first thing I do is take a deep breath and go, think about what opportunities are there for education, what opportunities are there to share. At the end of the day, there's the common ground of we all want what's best for kids. Now, what that means and what that looks like and how we get there are different definitions and ideologies from different people. But if we can start with what we agree on, and that is we want what's best for kids, and then move from there into what does that look like? How do libraries do that? How do libraries serve that? I think that's how I navigate it in a way that keeps me sane and also builds bridges, because we go back to the girl who loves information, right? Like, the way to build a bridge is through education and through sharing the stories and sharing the experiences of our libraries. And so I welcome, people will sometimes chuckle because often my first response to something is, I am so grateful for opportunities to talk about the amazing work that school librarians do. So if someone gives me an opportunity to do it, I'm going to do it, no matter what lens they approach me with.
Thank you for that. One other question from Diane is, other than earning an MLIS and or a teaching degree, what do you look for in recruiting new school librarians? What are the top maybe 2 or 3 traits?
So, we always know that folks are coming from lots of different backgrounds when they come to school librarianship. So I think the first thing is a love for the age group of whatever students they want to be working with. Like, I'm a middle school teacher. I love middle schoolers. And there are a lot of folks out there that will say, oh, bless you, like, oh, goodness. And because maybe it's the hormones or the whatever that, the mood swings that they're not into. And I'm like, oh, man, I love that. I eat it up. I find it fun and interesting. And you never know what personality you're going to get because it's age appropriate, that the personality changes every day. And it's fun and engaging and interesting, and middle schoolers can love a sticker, more than I can love other human beings, because of all of this, emotion that's going, all these things happening in their mind. And it's beautiful. I'm a middle school teacher. That's where I belong. And so there are school librarians who feel that way about high school. And I thought I was a high school teacher, and then I realized I was a middle school teacher. And there are those that feel that way around elementary. And when there's elementary teachers and librarians, I go, oh, like, bless them. Like, they're so cute. The elementary kids are so cute and so sweet, but they're also very wet. And I'm like, ugh. And so it's not for me. But there are elementary teachers and librarians who just love that age group. It's the interaction and the sharing with that age group. So I think that's number one. Like, it isn't just a job, because I can love books. Yes, we want people who love books. Yes, we want people who love information. But just as in other library sectors, this is a service job, right? We're not reading books all day. We're teaching kids and working with kids and engaging with kids. And so you've got to really enjoy the age group that you're looking to work with. And so I think that's trait number one. Whatever age group you're wanting to work with, that you have a true passion for teaching and learning and engaging with that age group. I would say number two is ability to prioritize and reprioritize and stay flexible and reprioritize again, because every day is different. We have schools that have 300 students at them. We have schools that have 4,000 students at them. And so when you imagine that many people sharing space in a building together, every day can go off the rails in different ways. And the library is yes, we're ruled by the bell a little bit in secondary. The bell rings, kids leave, some new kids come in, but the day lives the life it lives. And so we've got to be flexible and responsive. So I would say those would be the top two traits that we look for in folks, outside of the knowledge base. And then also, and I know I mentioned this, a love for reading, a love for books. In our screening in Hillsborough County, we ask the question, as librarians, we love sharing our reading lives with each other. We love sharing our reading lives with kids, and we ask kids to share their reading lives with us. So in the interview, we ask folks, share a little bit about your reading life with us. What are you reading? What did you finish? How do you feel about it? Because we absolutely want people who want to engage with kids about what they read, and be vulnerable and share their reading life. So I would say those are our top three.
Thank you. I'd just like to share a comment. Catherine says, as a school librarian here in Hillsborough County, we're so fortunate to have Kim as our supervisor. Knowing we have her support allows us to be passionate, love our work, and show up every day to do what's best for our students. And Diane says, thanks. You're so passionate, and what an insightful answer. So lots of good. I hope you get a chance to read through the chat, because there's lots of compliments. Thank you. Great feedback.
And I didn't pay the librarians at all to say nice things. In fact, I didn't tell them about, I told them about the talk, and I think I shared what the original topic was. But when I changed it, I didn't tell anyone, I didn't tell many people. I didn't mention it to the school librarians in Hillsborough because I didn't want it to come off as like pandering for them to come, so.
Do we have any other questions? Either anyone who wants to unmute or to pop in the chat. I'll give that another few moments.
I will unmute.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Hi, this is Alicia again. I just thought of a question. Because you are now an adjunct in our school, and you get to see a little bit of the work that we try to do in formation of future or current media specialists. What do you think we're doing well, and what do you think we need to improve in educating the people who will be working in schools?
Thank you. What an intimidating question. How fantastic.
Sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. So, I think, and reflecting on my own experience in the program and reflecting on the experience of our school librarians, because Hillsborough County Public Schools does require that school librarians take coursework from ALA accredited institutions. So this is an anomaly in the state of Florida. So the state of Florida does not require coursework. A person can be a teacher, can then pass a test to add educational media onto their certificate, and then they are a certified school media specialist in the state of Florida. Hillsborough County is an anomaly in that we do require, in addition to that, specific coursework in the skills and knowledge base of being a school librarian. And so we have very specific courses that we require. It's not the full master's degree, but it's 18 credits worth. So I share that just to give a little framework of like what feedback we get from our librarians with the courses. I think in reflecting on many of the courses, it's that very practical nature that one of the things that USF program does so well is that there are the theoretical and philosophical foundations, and then consistent practical applications of what that looks like when you're working in a school library. And I think that's really powerful because this is a very practical profession we work in. And so I think that is one of the biggest strengths of the program. I think that, and I don't know that this is it's something that isn't done. I don't know that it's something that's not done well, but I know it's something that I have struggled myself with over the last 3 years and worked with lots of media specialists with as well. And that is the historical legal foundations of what our profession is built on. And I think about foundations, and I remember learning so much of that there. And then as I was teaching this semester as an adjunct with organization and administration of the School Library Media Center, sometimes things would pop into my head of like pulling from foundations, and then into the course about what are the legal foundations here? Who are the giants that we stand, on their shoulders and as we do this work. And so I think that is an element that is so vital, particularly right now. I think in school libraries, we've had a nice 30-year chunk of time where we haven't had to navigate that very much. You think back to like the 80s and the early 90s when there were, conversations about censorship in books in school libraries. And then we had, decades where that wasn't part of the conversation. And now that it is again, being well-versed in the law, being well-versed in the way law impacts school, because the way law impacts school is very different than the way law impacts public libraries or other sectors of library where it's primarily adults, or it's adults and their children, and the adults have decided that children can go there, whereas we have captive children in school. And so I think having a deeper understanding of how those foundations are there and how they impact our work would do us well. But it's one of those things that, we can learn once, and then if we don't use it, it goes the wayside until it's important to activate again. So I think that's one thing that I'm constantly growing in myself and looking for resources for.
Thank you. So there's one more question. Is there a teaching practice that could be expanded specifically on information literacy?
So this is funny because in the class I was just teaching this semester, we were talking about this in some of the reflections. Some students were even sharing some reflections. And at the beginning of the course, we talk about lesson planning and like standards and how, in school library, we have our national school library standards, which are put out by AASL. We have technology standards, but then we in the state of Florida, we do not have standards for library. Librarians are using standards of every other content area. So when I'm working with a science teacher and we're co-teaching information literacy skills for science fair, yes, I'm using AASL guidelines and standards or technology standards, but I'm focused on working with that teacher to meet their science standards. And so navigating that space for folks who do not have a background in education is a significant learning curve. Understanding teaching standards, understanding what lesson planning looks like, how to design objectives that are reasonable, how to then design activities that directly align with learning to meet those objectives, how to assess whether those objectives were met, and doing this for my library skills, my information literacy, and my research or my citation or whatever skills I want them to have from my teaching as a librarian, but while also every step of the way meeting and matching and supporting the standards of that classroom teacher. And so, but that doesn't look like classroom instruction, right? I'm not teaching the science teacher's class, I'm teaching library skills through the science teacher's class. And so that craft of co-teaching and co-planning and co-creating and delivering instruction is a lot. It's a lot of intellectual work and building those frameworks of understanding. And so for our folks who had backgrounds as teachers in the course, that came fairly naturally, figuring out then how they'd planned as teachers, now planning as a librarian. It was a skill to learn how to tie those things together, how to weave them together. But for our folks who did not have a background in education, it was, there was more coaching and more support required, and as well there should be, right? Because that's not where their background is. But one student in their reflection shared an idea of there should be a course where we learn how to lesson plan and co-teach, but as a librarian, not an education course. And I was like, wow, what an interesting idea. I'll share that. So now I've had the opportunity to share it. I was planning on emailing that idea and sharing it along feedback from a student, but I've had the opportunity to share it here today. Thank you. Yes, and the teaching information literacy, that's a great course.
Karen, did you have? I thought I saw your.
So Kimberly,
I thought I saw your hand.
I'm like sitting in my chair, like shouting like praises around this. So A, yes, yes, yes. B, yes, yes, yes. And the other thing is that, there is so much opportunity from my perspective around that. If, for example, we look at information literacy more as in a disciplinary context versus a add-on context. Mm-hmm. And much of what you have shared today, I would suggest, aligns with those ideas, both from your students as well as some of the instructors. So I just think there's lots of opportunity for that work. It will be work, but I do believe that there is this understanding of information literacy from your students that you just shared. They're please ask, please give us a course, right? That helps us more fully understand this idea of using information in our work. And that will be delivered differently for different disciplines, which is fine. But if it's a discipline, then we can better articulate that across curricula, I would suggest. So thank you for your comments. I'm very pleased to hear your thoughts about that at this level of work. And in the US, as I'm sure you're aware, there are many states that are saying the K-12 IL media literacy scope should be part of the curricula. In fact, there's legislation that says it will be done. New Jersey was the first state to do that. So I think there's hope, and maybe collectively our voices will sort of resonate to in that regard. So this has been great. And just so you know, I'm on your side. I am a supporter. So anyway, that's all.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again. And if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up for the evening. But if everybody would please just give Kimberly a big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure being here, and thank you for allowing me to share some space and share my love for school librarians.
Thank you. Definitely read through the chat. Got lots and lots of kudos there.
I will. Thank you.
Everyone have a great night and a nice holiday. I'll close the door and turn off the lights. I'll wait till everybody's gone.
Good night.
Good night.